Welcome to Unedited, our fortnightly podcast where we explore the opportunities and challenges that are facing the retail industry. Brought to you by myself, Grace Hill, and Diana Bang.
From fashion, beauty, and homeware, Grace and I will cover industry topics and shed light on how retailers can create a brighter future.
Merry Christmas and happy holidays, Diana. I guess this is it for 2020. What a wild year, and our very last episode. I guess what a year it's been. I mean, I can't bear to say the C word once more.
Let's not.
I know. But yeah, it's definitely been a wild ride. What are you up to for Christmas? What are your plans?
Well, I'm in the Lake District right now, so just got here before Tier 3 lockdown, but I'm just going to be just my mom and my brother, very small, keeping it not to a big party. What about you?
Yeah, I'm going to be just having a small Christmas this year with my immediate family. But yeah, going back to the Isle of Wight. So a Tier 1 Christmas for me, which is exciting. I don't really know what to expect. It feels like a whole new world.
Won the lockdown lottery with Tier 1.
I know. I mean, being born and raised on the Isle of Wight has definitely come into its own. Normally, as a teenager, I found it very boring and annoying, but now, heading into my 30s, I can appreciate having that as where I grew up.
Yeah, well, I mean, everything here in Lake District is obviously in a different tier. So we're doing an alpaca walk tomorrow. So we're going to go for a walk with some alpacas.
Oh my gosh,
festive.
How countryphile of you.
Yes. But yeah, I mean, I guess this is the end of the year, like you said. We've looking into 2021. Pantone have just released their new colors of 2021, which is ultimate gray and illuminating yellow. So a message of happiness supported by fortitude. So I guess that's quite. I guess that describes it in a really good way, doesn't it?
I hope so. The strength and positivity that's required for the year ahead.
And it links quite nicely into our topic for this episode.
Yeah, so in this episode, we are going to be discussing the top trends of 2020 and what that means for 2021. But before we get started, we wanted to thank all of you, our loyal and new listeners that have joined us on this journey this year. It really means a lot to us that you tune in for every episode, and we really hope that you continue listening into 2021.
To help us analyze the year and next, we welcome two of our retail analysts here at Edited to the podcast, Aoife Byrne and Krista Corrigan. Merry Christmas and welcome to the podcast, guys. How are you? How's New York, Krista? And how's Dublin, Aoife?
Thank you. Yeah, New York is good. Everything's good here. Just preparing for the holidays coming up.
Yeah, all good in Dublin here. Yeah, it's a lovely rainy day here, but yeah, doing good. Thanks. Preparing for Christmas as well.
Have you guys got anything nice planned for Christmas?
Not on my end. I mean, pretty small. I think it looks a lot different than we expected, but similar to Thanksgiving, just my immediate family going to get together, and it'll be nice to be together and inside for a bit and at least get to see them.
Yeah,
cozy.
Exactly.
Yeah, just going to keep it kind of small this year, but yeah, the main thing is we'll kind of be together and stuff. Being quite careful, but yeah, we'll, get the Christmas dinner and it's going to be good.
The story of 2020, I guess. So let's kick off with the events of this infamous year and those that have had kind of the greatest impact on the retail landscape.
Yeah, I think you can't mention 2020 without also talking about the pandemic. So undoubtedly, that's been the biggest event that's had a huge impact on 2020. And with that has come a wave of lockdowns. We've seen retailers trying to navigate, the most updated rules and restrictions, and really just trying to continue to connect with their customer, regardless if the stores are open, if the stores are closed, how they can safely deliver products. So the pandemic and in the middle of the year as well, while we were going through lockdowns, we also saw the Black Lives Matter movement come really to the fore, and quite a few social injustices happening around the world, and especially in the United States. So I think on top of an already tumultuous year, that was something that also, retailers really needed to be aware of and educate and continue to work on. And that impact, we'll get into it a little later, but that trickling down also had a huge effect on 2020.
Yeah, and definitely we also saw Black Friday looking very different this year, slightly impacted as well by the BLM movement. So like a lot of retailers kind of like shunned their original messaging. A lot of people kind of put more focus on Giving Tuesday instead. We saw brands like Pretty Little Thing instead go for a totally different color. They went for Pink Friday. And then there's also been like some record-breaking retail events. There was the biggest Singles Day ever, and that completely outshone Amazon Prime Day as well.
Maybe that there was more people that were on their own or being able to take advantage of the like communication promotions that were out there for themselves, and having more time to kind of interact with them and research and communicate with brands.
Totally.
From your perspective, how did you see retailers adapt in 2020? And maybe looking more at the positive sides of things, what were the positive opportunities that were born out of these circumstances?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely been lots of opportunities this year. I think people really used the pandemic to kind of like accelerate like online growth and things maybe they've been kind of looking at already. But there was like a lot of virtual try-ons. M&S rolled out some contactless bra measuring services in stores with the basically had trained fitters that would kind of like advise from a distance. Browns, they started using AR in their mobile app, so customers were able to try on footwear. We also saw the cosmetic industry like really leaning into that idea as well. So people really kind of got creative and kind of really, there was like a really heightened focus on omnichannel and turbocharging online growth.
Yeah, I think to Aoife's point, retail does a really great job of always operating from a customer first perspective. And so whether it was keeping consumers safe within the stores, implementing those types of measures to prevent the spread of COVID and just really instill confidence in the consumer to come back and keep shopping with them. So, even things like no contact deliveries and investment in different technologies and augmented reality, just to really heighten the consumer's confidence in what they're buying, especially if they're not getting to see it, feel it, touch it. So that was a really huge one, I think, this year.
Yeah, we also saw like a lot of growth. Obviously, like PPE has gone completely mainstream now. So like all that kind of like personal safety stuff, like masks are definitely kind of here to stay, I think, now. And we kind of saw people get kind of quite innovative in terms of like fabrics. We saw Christopher Kane launch the first antiviral face mask. Burberry launched that luxury kind of face shield. We also saw like in the mass market, Boohoo, they released a lot of like snud hoodies and like these kind of dresses with built-in face masks. So people really kind of like got creative and tapped into that market as well.
Yeah.
It's so funny, isn't it? Because I feel like I was looking at Val and Vic, like as I was thinking of like weddings for next year and dresses that I would love to wear, even though they're very expensive, but they had like red silk matching face masks to go with their dresses. And I was thinking, oh my God.
Yes. I mean, even if you look at Express for menswear, they'll take fabrics that were meant for bow ties and neckties, and they'll offer the bow tie or the necktie and then use the fabric to also make a matching face mask. It's
Oh my God.
to see how retailers are getting creative, especially now that they've had some time to think about it and design products specifically to be worn, outside, safety first amid the pandemic.
It really is like the essential accessory, isn't it, for 2020? So obviously Footfall has been a huge struggle for retailers this year across the board, with endless store closures and dipping in and out of lockdowns and different restrictions. So what tactics are you guys seeing retailers implementing to get their customers back into store, and how are they kind of comforting and restoring confidence within their consumer base as well?
Sure. I think, we talked about the pandemic, and most retailers now have gotten this down to a science of how can we keep the consumer safe while returning in store. So it's not really anymore about what can we do in the store, because I think we're seeing merchandise spread out, sanitation and all those things coming to light. But now it's really about moving forward. How can we keep the customer coming back? So things like extending discounts and returns in stores, I think that's a huge thing that's going to continue. Retailers really will need to be flexible with what the consumer is comfortable with. And that includes things like quarantining clothing after they try it on in the store, and some different measures and methods in the store that they wouldn't normally, adhere to. But I think if you want to keep that customer, retailers are really going to have to be flexible around what they're allowing the customer to do. And that's just going to create a good experience and keep them coming back.
Yeah, for sure. I think just accommodating the customer and kind of building up that trust again, and offering an experience as well that they can't get online. Obviously depending on, vaccines and everything, but offering, in-store events, deals and services like, doing in-store monogramming, wrapping, things like that. I think just offering something different, and putting power kind of in the customer's hands.
I think I had that with H&M, where they had their online cyber event, and then after the online version I got a notification that they were doing in-store discounts only, but right underneath the notification it was like, we are putting these measures in place to make you feel safe while shopping. And when I went into the store, the person at the front of the entrance had almost like a script that he had ready of going through all the precautions to take. So it's interesting that I experienced the full online to in-store
customer journey, I guess.
Yeah.
I know, I think it's wild that I've not really had any experiences of retail stores where you have been able to try on product, but the fact that some stores are quarantining product for 72 hours before you can try that on, I'm so interested to understand more about how they're managing their inventory and kind of visual presentation and merchandising, knowing that so much stock is going to be probably being sanitized or quarantined.
Right, for 3 days, because I've personally been in a couple stores where you have been able to try on, and you basically, when you leave the fitting room, just put everything in a big bin, but there's so many clothes sitting in there. And I guess with more limited space on the floor and with spreading out merchandise, maybe they're able to make it work with making the store look more full because they have to distance the racks and things like that. Mm-hmm. But it is so interesting to think about, now you can't sell that for an entire 3 days after someone's tried it on.
Yeah, I've definitely seen people try on in front of the mirror in the stores though, but I don't know if some stores are more allowing that and others aren't.
I think that might be slightly illegal. It's
Yeah,
when people are throwing on skirts on top of their trousers to see if it fits.
Yeah, it goes without saying that 2020, the wardrobe consisted of loungewear and sleepwear. I'm actually wearing a dress today, so I'm not in my leggings, which is quite new, but it'd be interesting to see or to hear how we see the 2021 wardrobe shifting, especially for hero pieces and categories.
Yeah, I think going forward, there's going to kind of be two types of customer that's going to emerge. I think, on one side, there's going to be the type of customer who's, just raring to get back out there, wants to go to their festivals, wants to just travel no matter what, and I think for them, kind of escapism and more kind of, going out clothes and stuff, it's going to become important again. But I also think there's going to be, the consumer that's, gotten quite used to the home-centric lifestyle and also has really, embraced comfort and, is reluctant maybe to let go of the sweatpants. So I think kind of catering to both customers is going to be really key in 2021. And I think for women's wear anyway, I think a focus on fabrics is going to be quite important. We kind of saw that this year with In kind of, again, two veins, we saw, anti-bac, antiviral kind of innovation within fabrics. And then we also saw, comfort fabrics become very important. So like cashmere and fleece, like super soft Supima cotton, things like that. I think customers really looked to those kind of like fabrics to, get comfy and feel kind of, protected in their little bubble. So I think versatility will be very much key. I think, seamless leggings that are good for around the house, but also for running errands and like working out. Bralettes that are going to double as, going out tops, but also loungewear. Also, like we saw chuck on dresses like be a really big thing this year and last year. And, kind of more trend-led sweats as well, because we're not getting rid of those anytime soon.
Yeah, I think Aoife brought up a fantastic point. It's the same in menswear too, versatility, and you're going to hear that theme, I think, a lot throughout 2021. And it's interesting to look and see how different retailers are accommodating that customer. And as Aoife said, you're going to have two totally different, depending on what they're comfortable with, two totally different types. But even in menswear, we saw a lot of people, looking to the outdoors and escapism and staycations. And we've already seen, that influence in menswear with more of an outdoorsman, gardener type utility look, and some different trends that they can wear, on the weekends, or they can wear going out. They could wear it on a hike, something like that. So seeing those pieces and those staple pieces that they can wear across multiple occasions, I think is going to be huge. Polo shirts have been also a really big thing in menswear, and turtleneck sweatshirts, these pieces that can act as loungewear and are comfortable, but also will transition if they want to go somewhere on the weekend, looking into the next year, and they can wear it for future occasions.
I think that's the thing, right? Isn't it? It's not going to be a flick of a switch into 2021 and suddenly everyone is going to be on holiday and wearing sequins from head to toe. It's going to be the fact there's going to be two customers, people that want to hold on to that sweatpant lifestyle, like you guys said. But there's obviously still going to be very much that demand for when things start to lift. So obviously, like the typical trend funnel that we see is obviously runway. We see Instagram and influencers on holiday or street style, and obviously all those things changed in 2020. So it'd be great to understand more about how the trend funnel shifted and what the new normal for runway is actually going to look like next year.
Yeah, so like it was a really exciting but also strange kind of runway season, wasn't it? So we kind of, again, like we saw in retail, we saw brands really like pushing the boundaries and get experimental. Phygital was a real buzzword, so kind of blending the physical with digital. Louis Vuitton was a good one there. He, had a live audience, but he also integrated 360 degree cameras that audiences at home could swivel to look at the models coming down the runway. And we saw people kind of become quite playful. So Moschino had their show was like a puppet show with like little Anna Wintour marionettes and things like that. So so there's some really interesting takes on the runway this season, and obviously kind of sustainability was really at the fore as well. Not only because smaller carbon footprint because there were so many less people traveling, but also loads of brands were using like upcycling and dead stock materials, stuff like that, because they kind of had less materials kind of like at hand because of the pandemic. In terms of the trend funnel, it was really interesting this year because I kind of think it was flipped on its head a little bit, because the kind of loungewear trend was more so started on Instagram and retail, these areas that can be a little bit more reactive and proactive. And I kind of feel like runway was playing a little bit of catch up because, we saw masses of comfort and casualization on the runway this season with slippers and sweatpants and stuff, but it was kind of it felt a little bit behind the times by that point. However, it was still interesting to see like luxury takes on it and stuff, but yeah, it's quite interesting how that's kind of like flipped around. And we saw as well like some of the biggest trends of this year actually came from TikTok. There was cottagecore, dark academia, like to be honest, like much more kind of interesting trends actually stem from TikTok than the runway in some ways. So that's been really interesting.
Yeah, I almost feel like it's been a long time coming in a way for the luxury market and runway. I think for so long, it's gotten away with being so extravagant. And when you talk about sustainability, you really don't mention luxury and runway quite as much as you do with some of these other brands like that really have started and have a platform of sustainability in their ethos. So I think it almost seems like it forced the luxury market to really think about that, and to, like Aoife just mentioned, less travel, reduce their carbon footprint and things like that. And even with menswear, I mean, we've been seeing that line blurred for a while when you look at some of these streetwear labels and hype brands that really then have trickled into the runway, and we're starting to see the streetwear brands dictate the trends and the runway, trying to catch up. So I think it's been a really interesting trajectory to see how that's been going so far in 2020.
And also with like Montclair just acquiring Stone Island and seeing luxury players go into that streetwear side. And it's really interesting to hear how they are engaging with influencers now with travel brands, because we spoke to the style director at Women's Wear Daily in one of our previous podcasts about this, and the Fendi pasta that we spoke about that Fendi sent to their influencers ahead of the runway shows was amazing, that he had that on the table and was about to have some pasta from Fendi right after the podcast. But with all this uncertainty in the air as to how normal 2021 will truly be, it'd be great to hear what the biggest runway trends to back in spring summer 21 will be.
So me and Krista were actually talking about this yesterday, and it's quite interesting because a lot of the trends for women's wear are also seen on the menswear runway. So nautical was like a really big one. We saw kind of like shell prints at Versace and Stella McCartney, which really tapped into escapism. Everyone was kind of like homebound this year, so I think that's why that trend kind of like arose, and that was also seen within menswear as well.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of outdoor and nature influences coming into spring 2021, particularly so even with menswear, Bermuda shorts and striped shirts and things that are more light, you can kind of wear anywhere, but they are not too fast fashion with that nautical trend for men. I think you see a lot of those influences right now. Another one, and Aoife kind of mentioned it before coming down from TikTok, but this idea of vintage femme, this really beautiful feminism is coming into menswear, and we're seeing these silky and lightweight fabrics and florals and very whimsical designs. You think, as far as influencers go, or people who are leading the charge with this style, at least for me, like Harry Styles, Shawn Mendes, some of these icons that are in the media, and they are really embracing some more feminine touches with their dressing and when it comes to their style. And we're seeing that all over social media as well, and it's really an aesthetic that's emerged from places like TikTok and Instagram and things like that.
Shawn Mendes, oh sorry.
No, I was going to say, the Shawn Mendes documentary, have you watched that?
His long curly hair looks great.
Yeah, but I watched him perform. I think it was the VMAs or the AMAs, one of the two, just like 2 weeks ago. And he had this, unbuttoned, like silky white shirt all the way down and these big flared trousers. And he was performing in this very like romantic stage setting. And it was a whole vibe that I was totally on board with. I thought it was so
very
great.
aboard.
Yeah.
I think the confidence, isn't it? That there's something about that confidence in being able to take on those styles.
Even just breaking out of the gender restriction or the gender norms that I think we've adhered to for so long. It's like finally we're seeing, men especially like embrace that and move away from it and kind of embrace who they are.
And Krista, in terms of that vintage femme theme, are there particular key items that you envision that trend really being kind of important to include in retailers' collections, and like what products lend themselves best to covering that trend?
Yeah, sure. As I mentioned, shirting is a huge one. So button-down shirts, and really thinking of lightweight, sheer, silky, those types of fabrics.
Mm-hmm.
Prints will be huge on those. So florals and polka dots, detailing like ruffles, those types of things. And I think it's such a, shirting has seen such a skyrocketing success in 2020 with Zoom being a huge part of our life, and really people dressing from the top up and caring about how they look, there. So I think shirting is going to be a huge one. Really wide fit trousers, again, very loose fabrics, flowy fabrics, nothing too restricting. Accessories are going to be huge, so pearls, gloves, things like that for men. It's, earrings. We're seeing a lot more men wearing jewelry right now. It's those types of embracing little feminine details and touches that are going to be huge for 2021.
We also saw on the runway a lot of kind of these two kind of opposing themes at play. So we saw on one hand minimalism. So following the 2008 recession, that was a really huge trend to kind of bubble up after that. So kind of more subtle branding, clean lines, classic color palettes. So I think that's definitely going to be a really safe bet for retailers next year. I think kind of oversized blazers. Actually, this could work really well for unisex assortments as well. Again, kind of like wide fit, high-waisted trousers, simple tees, but all in kind of premium fabrics where possible. And then on the other hand, we saw maximalism, which kind of taps into the escapism we talked about earlier as well. So that was more, bright colors. There was like a lot of neons. We saw a Balmain, and then, sequins and party wear, sparkle, things like that. So, I think minimalism will definitely be the kind of safer bet, but, elements of kind of that maximalist aesthetic will be really, really important as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think, and we saw something similar too back in the 2008 recession, this move away from oversized branding and in your face, like this is what I'm wearing, and really a more subtle take on a lot of the trends. And I think we're starting to already see that. Things like monochrome dressing, before I think it might have been a bit taboo to wear like an entire navy outfit. And now it's cool if everything you're wearing is the same color and kind of goes together and matches. So very minimalist looks for men, subtle brandings, high quality fabrics, investment pieces, things along those lines for men's, which kind of goes against the next trend that we're seeing, which is really a return to early 2000s nostalgia. So you think of those, and especially in women's wear, but even for men's wear, you think of different like denim looks and things that for a while were, went away, and in 2010 and on went away. We're now seeing a return in the consumer purchasing those trends.
Yeah, nostalgia has been so huge for the past few years, and I guess like the clock has kind of been creeping closer as the years have kind of gone by. So now we're kind of in the noughties phase. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure you guys have all seen the Kim Kardashian like wearing the exposed thong dress, and ASOS actually hopped on that trend very quickly with their own line, ASU. And Weekday have also bought into that already. So that is, although it's probably a bit controversial, that's definitely been something that we've seen on the runway and already filtering into the mass market. Kind of colors like purples, pinks, blacks, a lot of crop tops and distressed denim, low-rise denim. So yeah, some things that maybe won't be so welcome for some, but great for Gen Z and the younger kind of consumer.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm too keen to get a low-rise pair of jeans out.
So they were just not flattering back then. I don't know. Well, back then we thought it looked like incredible and amazing, but
Especially not with doing any exercise over lockdown, that is for sure.
So yeah, we also saw some really strong color stories on the runway. So I guess positive palettes kind of sums it up quite well. So across men's and women's wear, we saw a lot of pastels. Pastels have been huge this year, but for spring 2021, we saw a lot of kind of washed out, kind of more subtle takes on this. And then the other side, we saw, saw neons, we saw oranges, we saw fuchsia, and apple green has been quite a big one as well that's been bubbling up. So that's definitely one to watch for the coming year as well.
Yeah, I think definitely people are looking for some sort of something to make them feel good, make them feel happy. And I think colors, especially in fashion, can easily do that. So even in menswear, we're seeing a lot of that, those positive oranges, pinks, yellows, pastels. Aoife mentioned it, but I think pastels have, been bubbling up for quite a few years now, but on the spring 2021 runway, they were huge. So that's a very big area of investment. And then on the flip side of that, neutrals and earthy tones and kind of this return to something that's a little bit more calming. I think we can all probably relate to, seeking some sort of comfort and calm amongst this year and through all this. So we're definitely going to see that continue. And that really lends itself well too to some outdoors adventure themes that I mentioned that we've been seeing in menswear. So utility looks and cargo pants and anoraks and utility vests and things like that that he's really returning to, and that serve both a fashion but also functional purpose in his day-to-day life. And then again with colors, I think loungewear is still, everybody's probably sick of hearing it, but it's not going anywhere anytime soon. So those, sweat sets and co-ord sets, jogger shorts for menswear, things that, again, it's especially in early spring when it's cold and, you want to be cozy and comfortable, really those soft fabrics, those, hoodies and sweatpants and things that he can wear inside are going to be a really big investment for 2021.
I think my partner's taken it to the extreme with the versatility in loungewear, because he's just gone out in the bathrobe and put the coat over the bathrobe with boots on to go and get something in the car. So maybe he thinks that people will just think that's just the trend now. It's normal.
So guys, obviously like the most kind of confident piece of positive news and information that we've kind of heard this year about things returning to a new normal was the Pfizer vaccine. And how do you feel that's changed our outlook on retail in 2021?
Yeah, it's funny. Aoife and I were just discussing this yesterday, and I think two words came to mind, and we both said conservative optimism. I think nobody can really predict what it's going to look like and when, everyone's going to have a vaccine and when everyone's going to be comfortable returning. This is completely uncharted territory. So I think everyone's hopeful for 2021, but, erring on the side of caution. So, that really comes down to, preparing for both scenarios. But I think, some of these more trend-led retailers are going to have a little bit of hope for consumers wanting to dress up again. We talked about that one consumer type that's going to come out of this who's excited to get back to quote unquote normal and holidays and dress up for something, even if it's just, out to dinner with your friends and family. So I think it's a hopeful outlook for 2021, but again, things have been so up and down, you never know what is going to come. So it's just a little bit tougher to predict.
I think it highlights the importance of that versatility point that you guys made earlier as well, right? Because it could go either way, and making sure your product enables you to flip either direction dependent on how it turns out.
100%.
And on the flip side, I guess you were mentioning about caution, and I love that conservative optimism, I guess, trend that we might see. What do you see being the biggest challenges for retail in 2021?
So I think, again, back to the kind of two types of consumer we see emerging, I think getting the assortment right will be really challenging for retailers. I think we're already seeing quite a saturated market now in terms of loungewear, and I think, going into 2021, it's probably going to tip into oversaturation. So I think, just getting the balance right is definitely going to be a huge challenge. We saw this year, retailers kind of pivoting to kind of meet these challenges. So like costs, they pivoted from, quite like formal minimalist wear to they launched like an activewear collection. We saw Birkenstock going into skincare. Like people are kind of really having to diversify, and yeah, getting the mix right is definitely going to be quite challenging.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's going to come down to, as Aoife just said, product and promotion. I think those are going to be the two areas that are going to be really key to getting right, but will also be the toughest. When lockdown started and the pandemic first started in the beginning of this year, we saw a lot of retailers scrambling with inventory levels and discounts and really just, like throwing spaghetti at the wall, trying to see what would stick and what promotion was going to drive the consumer to purchase. And in 2021, you're going to be up against all of those promotions and all of that business. So I think it's really retraining your customer on your promotional strategy and developing a cadence that is, going to carry you forward rather than trying to match what they did last year, because it was such an anomaly of a year that you can't really, benchmark against it whatsoever.
And I know kind of the word omnichannel has been a huge buzzword in recent years when referring to retail, and obviously businesses have had to pivot on their kind of business models and distribution strategies massively in 2020. So what does this word mean in 2021?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess it kind of goes without saying that the focus on online is going to be absolutely huge going forward. So the McKinsey State of Retail report this year had a really interesting statistic. They said that 71% of fashion executives now expect their online business to grow by 20% or more in 2021. So definitely there is going to be, huge growth and focus there. Having a seamless online experience from start to finish. We've also seen a lot of retailers put a lot of emphasis on their mobile apps this year, so we can kind of expect some more improvements there. And yeah, just like blending online and offline is going to be really, really important for omnichannel. And in terms of kind of opportunities, live streaming has been really, really massive in China. And I think there's probably some really good opportunities there for retailers going forward, fusing shopping and entertainment.
Yeah. I think because, brick and mortar for so long was the main avenue of shopping, often when we think of omnichannel, we think of e-com and how our brands and retailers, shaping that experience for the consumer to give, as Eva mentioned, a seamless experience all around. But now, we often forget about that brick and mortar piece. And I think that's going to be what is going to be so interesting next year, is to see, how the landscape has changed. What stores are still operating? Have they changed strategy? Did they open and return, back to normal pre-pandemic? So I think the brick and mortar part of it is going to be huge. It's crazy to think in the US, in 2019, 9,500 stores closed. And in 2020, that could be as many as 25,000. So this growth and this, I guess, volatile change in the retail landscape is going to be massive. So we're going to see some stores closing, but as well as, our stores pivoting, and what are retailers doing with that store space? Are they prioritizing maybe an in-store experience next year? Are they, doing something creative or something different with that space? I think, we were talking a lot yesterday too, Aoife and I, about pop-ups and how this, while it's very sad and you never want to see a store close, it could open the door for an up-and-coming brand to rent out that store space and open a pop-up experience and give the consumer, something that they're excited to come in and do. So, that's a two-prong approach, definitely e-com and brick and mortar, but I think both are going to see massive changes next year.
Those numbers are huge, Krista. 9,500 in 2019 versus potentially 25,000 in 2020. But it's interesting to hear how it's pushing retailers to innovate and maybe look at channels that they can engage with customers outside of store, social media as well, collaborating with other types of channels. So we know social media has been huge in 2020. Can I just say Kylie Jenner gets $1.27 million per Instagram post? Isn't that like,
Blows my mind. Yeah.
23 years old anyway, but we know it's been huge. So how do you guys see social media? What's their role to play this year, and how do you see influencer marketing shifting in 2021?
Yeah, I know Aoife mentioned like seeing some, the trend funnel, and she talked about seeing some of these trends that trickle down now from, social media and TikTok rather than from the runway. And I think we're going to continue to see that in 2021. So these, subcultures have started to emerge, especially on TikTok. And I don't know if you guys are on TikTok. I know I have an account and try to be cool and like figure out what like Gen Z and younger consumers are doing, but I still feel completely lost. But you're seeing these different communities emerge. So we talked about the Femme aesthetic, e-boys. So gaming is so big for teen boys and in menswear. So this rise of, it's almost like a community, and they have, their own fashion trends, and they relate to each other and basically play video games. And it's something I'm so unversed in, but it's interesting to see dark academia, we've mentioned, in these varsity looks, cottagecore, and the idea of escapism and being outside in the countryside and embracing the outdoors. So I think, more than anything, Gen Z, especially, and these younger consumers, are going to start to look to social media as their primary source of what they should be wearing and the trends they should be buying.
Yeah, totally. And I think going forward, like we already saw this year, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook all launched their own in-app shopping. So I think social commerce is also just going to really boom in 2021, like making it just like super easy for your customer to like shop your product basically on your mobile phone, like while on these apps and admiring these trends.
Totally. I love it now when you like, you're on Instagram and you click something and you can actually see and go directly to that retailer's website. I think it removes that friction, right? And that discovery process of having to try and find out where these products are from and where you can buy them. So 2019 was defined by sustainability. 2020 was defined by coronavirus. How do you see sustainability progressing, or how did you see it progressing in 2020, and how do you see it evolving into 2021?
Yeah, so ThreadUp have a really strong stat about this. So they've reported that this market is expected to hit 64 billion in the next 5 years, which is absolutely huge. So resale, it's been really increasing in popularity the past few years. This year we saw Zalando and COS, they both launched their own secondhand resale platforms. And Depop, of course, has like just taken off in an absolutely huge way, especially with the Gen Z consumer, who kind of favors more sustainable shopping practices. So it's definitely that's going to be a huge market. On Runway, as I mentioned earlier as well, the kind of continued digital presence of that, and the use of dead stock materials and repurposed materials, that's definitely going to contribute to sustainability in 2021 and going forward as well. H&M has been really proactive on this front. Their conscious exclusive collection for fall, they debuted 2 new eco-friendly fabrics. There was Nea Renew and Hemp Biofiber. So they're completely new eco-friendly products. So super, super exciting on that front.
Yeah, it was crazy the amount of retailers that were even in emails throughout this year communicating and being very transparent on how they were using some of the fabrics that they had that they might have planned for a specific collection that was no longer going to be relevant. So they quickly pivoted and made face masks and bandanas and like face scarves and different things that you could wear for protection when you're out. So I think we're definitely going to continue to see that. And then, even in 2021, this whole idea of a capsule wardrobe, I think the consumer is so much more conscious and aware of what they're purchasing, especially after this year. So really investing in high quality, versatile pieces that they can wear, in multiple different occasions. We've continued to talk about versatility. So that's going to be a huge theme next year. Just in, from fast fashion to really any brand, it's really thinking about how can you incorporate and infuse some of these classic iconic pieces into your assortment that the consumer knows that they can go to you for, that they can always buy, that will last them, more than just the season that you're currently in.
Similar to what we were speaking in the last podcast about with the conscious discounting and giving people time, or maybe some transparency of what they're going to be discounting before they do, so you can actually have time to think rather than the stress of the like quick thinking of buying products and then returning it, like Zara sharing the prices before they actually went on sale. But I guess looking forward again to 2021, what events and opportunities are actually planned for 2021? I'm not one of those Glastonbury people, but I wish I was, one of those cool people that go to Glastonbury. So I actually don't know what's happening next year, but what do retailers need to prepare for, and how can they mitigate risk in the event that it doesn't go ahead?
Yeah, so I also must confess I've never been to Glastonbury. However, it is slated to go ahead next year. So that's actually one of the few events, one of the few festivals that has confirmed that they will be going ahead with it. They had to cancel their 50th celebration this year, sadly. So I think they're definitely very determined to make it happen next year. So again, I think the kind of first step is making sure that you have a plan A and a plan B, and that versatility word again, having a multi-end use to your product. So buying into versatile trends, and in the event of them not going ahead, being able to act fast and reposition these, whether it's for a garden party or a living room festival. This season we saw a lot of retailers utilizing their tie-dye within loungewear edits, which were originally kind of meant to be more festival leaning. So just kind of being as reactive as possible with your trend edits and making pieces really easy for your customers to find and shop.
Yeah, I think Aoife covered like the festivals and things like that. The Olympics is, I think, one that we're all interested in, are really hoping happens next year, but definitely going to go forward with that. And I think that's a pretty safe one in some capacity to plan for, and especially the trends that come out of that. So when you think of the Olympics, you think of sports and leisure wear and tracksuits and graphics and baseball caps, things that have already been bubbling up across men's and women's wear as trends, but those are going to be really safe and easy things to back for next year ahead of the Olympics. And we mentioned, versatility. So how can you procure, create an edit on your website that might, be patriotic and be in your country's colors, and the consumer can buy it ahead of the Olympics or celebrate, and then they can still wear that, and it's not a one and done kind of use. So the Olympics are going to be another big event to watch out for next year.
So our final question normally is where we ask our guests what's the one thing that they want our listeners to take away from this episode. And I think I can answer that based on all the conversations, which is versatility, but we want to hijack it with, will retail return to normal in 2021? And what resources would you recommend our listeners leveraging to best prepare for it?
Yeah, so I mean, it's very difficult to say, but I think the market will still be recovering in 2021, and retail's going to be facing continued challenges in terms of kind of slow vaccine rollouts, cautious shoppers, tightened budgets, things like that. So the second half of the year we're quite optimistic about, but we can't really expect an immediate return to normalcy.
Yeah, I think all that we can do is, be as proactive as possible. I think that's where resources like Edited really come into play. I mean, even today, Edited is tracking 89 million products and 5,500 retailers. So it allows you to stay on the pulse no matter who your competitor is, who you're interested in looking at. I think leveraging some online resources like that are key. And then really, just staying on top of the market, paying attention to what's happening in the news, in pop culture. Those are really where huge influences on trends and, really anything are trickling down from. So it's paying attention to what your consumer is paying attention to. And I think that's going to be a huge recipe for success next year.
We know it's been really important for our customers to have access to real-time data at a time like this when everything's uncertain. So yeah, exactly. But it's been great. I guess this is, our last episode of the year. So Krista and Aoife, thank you so much. It's been wonderful having you on this last episode. So many insightful facts that you shared with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining. It was so interesting. As a listener of ours, we are here to support you as we enter a new and hopefully more positive year in 2021. If you're a customer of Edited, please contact your dedicated account manager and retail strategist, and they'll do everything they can to support you. For all of our listeners, thank you so much for all of your support this year. It has definitely been one to remember, and we appreciate every single one of you and hope that you join us for more episodes in 2021.
Thank you for listening to Unedited. If you've enjoyed today's conversation with Aoife and Krista, please make sure you subscribe to keep in the loop with future episodes, and please tell your friends or family about us. Happy holidays!
Bye!